Starting live on air. Hopefully we are. Oh, don't forget to mute it. I nearly did that to myself and forgot to mute the YouTube page. Okay, hello everyone. This is not quite reality chat. I think pretty obvious why. Peter's away at the moment. He's gone to a groovy festival. Hopefully I'll be going to join in a few days, but I wasn't able to go today. So I thought we'll run this reality chat, but it's not quite the usual reality chat. So me doing my playing with language kind of thing. It's not quite reality chat. It doesn't mean to say that what you're looking at is not reality. It definitely is. But that, I think, is part of the general discussion and topics that we've been doing for quite a while now. Is talking about how the mainstream media primarily, but also the alternative media, the internet, the social medias, all that stuff now is used to mess with your perception, to manipulate your perception, to twist your perception so it suits the agenda, the narratives of the usurpers, the controllers, the whatever you want to call them. I won't get into silly names, silly labels for now. Save that for a bit later. Yes, hello. Got Kip and Gary and Frank and Peter in at the moment. I did send a couple of other invites out, but we'll see if anybody else turns up. But we'll just get on with it. But the only thing I wanted to mention, and I know this means unfortunately mentioning one of the so-called alternative media's vanguard. I think more and more over the last couple of years they've become an obvious parody of themselves, and they prove themselves to be part of the narratives more and more, day by day, every day. But Tommy Robinson, who is a character, it's not his real name, he's a character who has been around sort of in the background of UK politics, an agitator, a so-called activist, member of the English Defence League, all this kind of stuff. I did share an article that's from 3 years ago now, isn't it? Yeah, because it was from 2013 on Keelan Balderson's website, wideshot.co.uk. If you have a look on there, there's some little bits of very interesting information in that. It's not, of course, the whole picture, but that will give you a really good sort of starting off point to look into how these pseudo grassroots movements, these astroturfed movements, are not only manipulated by the usual names that you hear, like Soros and people like that. There's a lot of players out there who have their own little pet NGOs or activist group, and the English Defence League is no different. That given, I'm fully aware of, and as a UK resident, there's many things that I agree with, that there are a lot of good people out there who just want to care for and defend their own community, their own society, their own people, their family, their friends, their social network. They care about them, they want to protect them, they don't want harm to come to them. That's all good and well and fair enough, but those good intentions can be astroturfed and manipulated and used as a weapon against you, against the very people that you're trying to protect. And that to me is the bigger picture. So when Tommy Robinson turned up on the GIMP's channel, the Info Whores GIMP channel, having a nice long rant about racial division, yeah, it adds to the narrative very nicely, and we can sort of get into that. I'll shut up for a minute, let other people speak if you want to say anything, guys, or if you want to like chuck in other topics as well. Like I said, that's just one of the main things that caught my attention today. So
I want to talk about Tommy Robinson, man, because I love archaeology, but like, on a serious note, Nah, man, what, like, second guessing here and stuff, right? Whether he was a plant from day dot, is all these right? Sticks in your throat, almost like your teeth after they've punched them fucking out. But like the right wingers, man, like they're all politically controlled at the top, and they're a rent a mob, and they're, as far as I can best guess, very much political orientated, and not even best guess from what I've witnessed in my life as well. Definitely, man, and I'm not like, and it's like Al Qaeda, only at the very top do they understand the political agenda that the, let's say, the monkeys are getting used for, whether it be in Al Qaeda, whether it be in ISIS, whether it be in whatever name they're given, a football firm. They're controlled entities, and Tommy Robinson rearing his ugly head. I don't know whether he was originally controlled or whatnot, but he's definitely now shown himself to be a political pawn, and he's using everybody to incite hatred right now. That's what he's getting used for. It looks to me like he's getting used to just incite hatred, basically, right now, Cookie.
Mm-hmm. Race war. That's what they've been pushing for years now, many years. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I've got that internet resentment against him because it's somebody I believed in who's turned out to be a liar again. But when you say was he controlled from the beginning, I actually went for his thing where he said his group had become too racist and he wanted to put, the emphasis on the community. I believe that. It sounded, very viable. But with these people, when you talk about control, you've got to realise there's somebody in his circle who says, oh, by the way, mate, stand a bit straighter when you think. And when you say the important lines, like Paul Joseph Watson, look straight at the camera. And these people are giving them these little techniques, and they realise that they work. And then one day they realise this guy that's been giving them the techniques is actually from Chatham House and has a few ideas and suggestions about where they could go. You see what I mean? So, so that's a very easy way for them to get pulled into the control. Somebody will help them, help their presentation, and then they're gone. But yeah, I wouldn't listen to a word he says. It's too controlled, I mean, the guy that is writing his script is sitting there with two papers, and at the same time he's writing the other script, So that's the way they show themselves sometimes, these people. They come out with exactly the exact thing that is opposite the other side that's being told. See what I mean?
That's classic of the, and I know for a lot of people, and I'm certainly of the same opinion in this, that as I've talked about before, the clarion call of it's the Jews. A lot of people jump on this and think that it's such a simple explanation as to just say something like that. It's the fault of the Jews, all that usual kind of rhetoric, which in and of itself is yet another trap that they set up to compartmentalise people and force them to polarise to one side or the other. But in this case, you can find a more than adequate paper trail of this guy's influences and his own statements. There used to be, I was just checking on the article, it's not actually on that article, but you might still find it out on the internet somewhere. There used to be a picture of him himself at one of the first protests they did, where he's got the Israeli flag over his shoulders, and wearing it like a cape. And at that very first speech, he made a statement, something along the line, I can't remember it exactly, but something along the lines of, we stand with Israel, because if Israel falls, we all fall. Right? Now, it's one thing to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, protecting your society, caring for the ones you love for. How does that suddenly jump to any one particular nation state's rhetoric, ideology, etc., etc.? And then you can get into all the links to do with Zionism, which, again, there is more than a good enough paper trail to find and show those links. So, for me, for many years, and I've tried to express this over now 4 or 5 years, to get this across to people. It's like, look, I get it that you care about your society and you're worried about dangerous people being brought into your society, but the knee-jerk reaction of the problem reaction solution that they want out of you is to have that short-sighted view that the only person you should be worried about is the person who stands out a mile as being different to you because he's got different coloured skin and he goes to a different kind of place of prayer and he talks differently, you know, all that usual kind of simplistic stuff. But instead, why are you not asking the question of, well, why are they here in the first place? Who's bringing them in? Who's allowing them to preach this hate speech in the public places? Well, where exactly is the blame here? And the reason I mentioned about those bigger picture, those further links, is because this is a classic technique of destabilizing a community, a nation on a grander scale, on a larger scale. And that article that I shared earlier was from 2013. We're now 3 years on from that initial process of driving in a wedge on these issues, and now look at the situation in Europe. France backed Palestine. Netanyahu made a blatant and overt warning to them, saying that's a really bad idea. You know, you're going to regret that. And lo and behold, look at where we are now, where they've now taken it to the point of they attack reached in a church in the north of France. They're making the point that we can reach all the way up to the north of Europe into a quiet little town and still cause you these problems. But all of these things, whether they're outright patsies or agents or whatever, or even a genuine crazy person, a jihadist, extremist, you know, all that kind of usual label, the result is the same. Yeah, the end result, the narrative is progressing along the same lines. So for me, trying to get across to people, you know, try and reach a bit further, try and not be stuck in that short-sighted view of seeing the calamity, the event, like the various terror events that have happened, and being outraged at the event itself, and looking to see where that bigger picture of who benefits out of the situation, who is most likely to have manipulated this to cause it to happen. And before anyone, and I know you guys probably wouldn't be saying this kind of thing, but I know for people listening and watching it, before anybody says, well, it benefits the Islamists, it benefits the Muslims, it doesn't. That's a really idiotic thing to say. You know, how does it benefit them? Because they're building their caliphate. You really think if they progress with this tactic that the rest of the world is just going to move out the way and let them build this thing and carry on trying to kill everyone and all this usual? Wow, that makes no benefit to them. But one thing has been very distinct over the number of years that ISIS, Daesh, whatever they want to call it, Al-Nusra Front, all these different sub-factions, none of them, not a single one of them, has attacked Israel. They attack everyone else, but they never attack Israel. So how is it that they're supposedly working against the great Israel to defeat the great Israel? They're not, are they? The only people that this in the long run benefits is those that are actually utilising the terror to justify increased security state, increased police state, blah, blah, blah. It's stuff we've talked about many times. Sorry, I've ranted quite a while. I'll let you.
I was going to say, for people that don't want to go with the government are controlling these people, at least one of the cases in Germany was almost definitely probably not terrorist related. The guy was just too mentally unstable, but for him to even know what, you know, religion is, basically, I think, wasn't it? So one of them, but they'll just add that story into the mix. Whereas in Japan, there's no way they can say this crazy guy in Japan is a terrorist. So, oh, that's just some mental guy, you know? I mean, you could treat all these people I mean, the one in northern France, Cerebra Sana did a video of the French chief of police telling you that this guy had tried to get to Syria in March last year, and he was arrested in Germany, I think, and they sent him back. So he left again, and he was arrested again, a second time in Turkey, and sent back to Switzerland. And both times he had to come back to France, and he ended up doing a year in prison for wanting to be a terrorist, I think the charge was. Yeah. But I mean, he actually knew the...
Yeah, kids are screwed nowadays if you can, like, sort of go to jail for wanting to be something. I remember when I was young, if you wanted to be something, they would put you on an advert. I want to be a tree. I want to be a terrorist. Go straight to jail. I mean,
yeah, he had to wear an electronic...
I was just going to throw in as an example of how that yo-yo effect of somebody who's sort of on a border control aspect of the authority sees this person and says, "Oh no, you're way out there, mate. You're a terrorist, or you're just too crazy. We don't want you in our country. We send you back." But they yo-yo. They come back again and again and again. And as an example of how the authorities manipulate situations to get these people into your country, you take the underwear bomber, the case in the USA, which was categorically proven that some agency worker was in the airport with this guy, actually ushering him through security, waving off the security and saying, no, he doesn't need a visa, no, he's coming in, he's coming in, he's coming in. And there's other examples. If you bother, again, to take off the short vision, you know, the short-sightedness, and look back through history, you'll find plenty of examples. Same thing here in this country. How long did it take them to eventually extradite Abu Hamza? They didn't. They kept him here for years and years and years, preaching his shit because that's what they wanted.
Cookie, what about the very similar thing that runs through all these bullcrap stories where they'll go, oh, he was known to security services, from the guy that chopped up soldiers in London to the recent guys. There's been hundreds in between, and nobody can, like, theorise that, was this guy like have a get out of jail free card? Was this guy an asset? Because it seems to be assets because they weren't talking about him and his mates getting out of jail free. It was just these individuals that seemed to, oh, he was in jail there but got out. He got caught there. He was tagged there. I mean, they just seem to be at every corner seem to be let loose.
Trace it all the way back, and I mean, I'm saying trace it in the sense of finding paper trail evidence to back up what you're looking at. You trace it all the way back to the IRA. I know I've mentioned this a few times recently because the mainstream media has deliberately brought that whole point back in to add to the terrorganda that is going on at the moment in the UK. Yeah? But you trace back the history of the IRA and you find out that it was set up by the British establishment deliberately to use as a tool.
I got the impression with this kid, the chief of police, rather than saying, well, it was this guy, and here's his passport, like they usually do, and that usually turns out to be somebody that's still living in Tunisia or Libya, and the guy gets on his phone and says, it's not me, somebody stole my ID. I mean, that was about 6 months ago. And then everybody just ignores that. You know, they just ignore it, totally. I mean, the guy might not exist anymore. The guy might not exist anymore. There he is. The guy's face is in a car in Tunisia, and nobody even...
It's another...
But anyway, sorry. Yeah, one last thing. This kid, when the chief of police was telling you about him going out to Turkey and Syria and being dragged back and put in prison for a year and then running away again, I got the impression, they have been waiting for this kid. They've been setting him up. They've been building his story. He's got friends online that he don't realise aren't his friends, egging him on. And the guy was really pleased that he eventually had this, story to read that would really, hit all the bells that it's supposed to. It wasn't just made up at the last minute, with photocopied IDs and passports that are very suspect. Yeah, he was really happy that he had a good story to give the public.
Well, we've talked before about how the way the internet stands at the moment, and especially in terms of the social media, it is not difficult for them to actually create a history, to create a persona online and give it a traceable history, because they can alter the server data and whatever else, you know, so they can create fake posts from years ago, so that when you try to investigate these people, you seem to find a genuine internet footprint, but it's not, it's all crafted. Yeah? And I know that for some people might sound a bit too paranoid, because again there's this constant reinforcement of, if you question this stuff, if you think that there is questions to be asked, then automatically that means you're paranoid, and nobody wants to be paranoid. Oh no, you'll get socially ostracized if you're paranoid about this kind. That again, stigma. It's like saying conspiracy theories to people. It shuts down their thinking and scared and run away from the topic.
Well, less so now, I think, Cookie, because I worked this out the other night, that people, they're starting to take the conspiracy theorists seriously, because there is a part of human nature that tells you that if somebody's lying to you, they'll keep changing their story. But we so-called truthers and that, we just keep saying the same thing. The truth doesn't change, and it's our consistency which is beginning to convince people. You asked about chemtrails, you know, you expect a different theory every month. No, it's still the same story, you know. Things like that, vaccines. Oh, now they're trying to inject you with superbugs. No, it's still just mercury and still the same. And it's the consistency that is winning us the game, because people start thinking, no, well, liars keep changing their story, but these people, they're continuing with what they're saying, the same all the time.
As another contemporary example of how governmental agencies will manipulate, control the dissemination of information, things like that, to get a result that they want. Just look at the situation in the past few days with the emails that have been leaked about Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party's outright manipulation of a situation to make sure that one candidate got in and the other one got pushed out. You know, you want provable examples of how the government will manipulate it. There you go, there's one. It might not be to do with terrorism, but in the long run it adds up to the pushing of similar agendas and narratives. And this is where that, I agree with you, that consistency, and over time we've had more and more evidence pile up to back up what we're saying. It's like, how much evidence do you want before a probability becomes a provable, traceable paper trail? You know, how much more chunks of evidence do you want before a coincidence becomes a conspiracy? You know, well, for people, this is for you to make up your own decision. You know, how much evidence do you need to see before it convinces you of something? You know, that's up to you to decide. But for myself, especially in these kind of topics, I feel I've seen more than enough to feel confident in the knowledge that every government does this kind of stuff, because from their point of view, they have to, because of the way the system works. The system works by corruption and leverage against each other. So they will actively undertake this kind of nefarious action to pursue their own agendas, to push their own agendas.
Yeah, and people like the Israeli intelligence service will come to some small country and say, oh, we've got some information you'd really like, you know, for whatever reason, yeah, political or economic. I mean, yeah, the system's corrupt. It's the only way to join. People would say it's the easiest way to join. I don't think you have to be corrupt, but there you are. But the thing I've noticed about the in France in particular, people were really getting annoyed about the Nice attack. They were getting annoyed because the police refused to release the names of the victims for the first 4 days. Then they tried to erase the CCTV tapes, and the woman who's in charge of them said she's not going to do that. She's not going to delete them. She's going to save them for a trial or something like that. I mean, they're evidence, aren't they?
If you read, actually, mate, if you read the sort of context of that report about that situation, she didn't say that she would not delete them at all. She just demanded that some other authority figure gave the okay for the deletion. So rather than her accepting a federal order to do the job, she wanted a local authority order to tell her to do it, and she refused to do it on the federal only remit. But
Yeah,
we've yet to find out how that situation progresses.
It hit the news, which from our point of view is like the main thing. Yeah, it's got the public questioning it.
Yes, and questioning why would the federal authority ask her to delete it.
Exactly.
Are they really genuinely worried that people will leak the footage when you can quite easily go on the internet and find footage of those kind of atrocities all over the place? There was a bombing today, I think it was, or was it last night in the Middle East? 40 plus people killed. I don't see anyone calling that out as a hoax yet, but you get the point. You know, this kind of stuff happens nearly every day somewhere on the planet. Why is it that the French federal agencies all of a sudden are particularly worried about this one event? No, it doesn't add up.
It's real!
Another thing with the French thing, if you watch Sri Prasanna, it's long videos but very detailed, and they have literally had to change their story as the truth community have debunked it. They debunked this guy going under the wheels on his motorcycle. So literally the next day they're rewriting the story. And about 2 days after that, they got this French guy to come out and actually give an interview of what happened. And by now he's changed his script and he's got it in line with, you know, all the rest of the story up to date. So I mean, you can see why they're running more attacks, because it's harder to do the same analysis on these attacks if they're coming too fast, you know. Everybody
warned about
a long time.
I don't know if you remember, right, because it was probably nigh on a year ago. We were talking about this kind of thing about a year or so ago. Here in the UK, we've had the Petergeddon for the last few years, where they've been fixating most people's rage, justifiable rage, but, you know, getting people to target that particular topic. But I remember we talked about it a long time ago about how these terrorist attacks will increase in frequency so that they saturate to such a degree, the mainstream media in particular, but all media will become so saturated with this fear porn effect that people will become absolutely traumatized. They won't bother questioning, they won't bother thinking about it, they'll just emotionally react immediately, knee-jerk reaction immediately without any thought. And they can't deal with the sheer scope of how often it's happening. You know, they can't get into that frame of mind of, you know, this. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like an abuser beating you. You know, they're increasing the amount of beating they're giving you until you submit. It's the same way as how some cultures tame horses. They don't do it by, you know, getting in touch with the animal and trying to sort of create some kind of bond with the animal. No, they literally just beat them.
It's interesting.
Training elephants, they do the same with elephants. They literally just beat them into submission until they lose all independent will, and they just go along with what the handlers want.
It's interesting you mentioned Northern Ireland earlier on, because I was thinking about this, how Chatham House and these people would have done a study on maybe the cortisol levels of people in Northern Ireland during their bombing spree. Because when you've got like 2 bombs a year, that's one thing. But when you start having a bomb every month, and most of the people in Belfast can hear the bloody thing go off, you end up with a population that are in fear all the time, and that they know the figures. They know how often they have to repeat these things to get that fear level generated and sustained. Yeah? I mean, anybody who lived in Northern Ireland can remember that whole period. They could probably tell you.
Your country needs you in fear.
Mm.
I put up a little picture that I made a while ago, reshared it the other day. It's the old World War One recruiting poster of, I think, was it Kissinger? Anyway, you know, the one where he's like pointing and saying, your country needs you. And to get my point across, I put the word fear in kind of like blood red, but I merged it into the word you, because I was trying to get the point across of your country needs you to be in fear. They need fear in you, because your nation state doesn't exist unless you have a fear of outsiders, people beyond your border.
See,
Yeah, go on.
just on that side note, right? A lot of us will be familiar with the 1984 characteristic big screen with everybody looking up at it. Can't remember where on the news the Democratic rally that's going on right now, and I'm not kidding you, they were all sitting with this big telescreen right up in front of them like that, and it was showing you all the ex-president men, and then Big Clinton appeared. And like, do you know how with the 1984 thing, there's that, subliminally you've got that redness in it. Every depiction I've seen of it's got that red tint. She's got her big red dress on, and she's, it was so ironic. It was I literally 1984 just popped straight into my head, but beautiful.
She does look more and more like some kind of tyrannical leader from a dystopian sci-fi movie.
Ming the
Some of the
Merciless.
clothes she's on. Yeah.
Well, actually, she looks like Ming. Thinking about it, stick a wee beard on her.
She reminds me of one of them
I'm
puppet, you know, the puppet horror movies. You know, the ones where the guy comes up with a puppet on a thing.
Oh, in fact, Zelda out of Thunder.
Zelda, yeah.
Aye, Zelda. Oh wow. Just even get
I know
Zelda.
I'm laughing, but the usual caveat of if you don't laugh, you'll go crazy. Yeah, because years ago I was talking about this kind of stuff, and now we're really starting to see it. You know, it's starting to really be on your streets. It's emerging on your streets. This is no longer just possibility rhetoric about potential. This stuff is actually going to happen.
Next, you'll be telling me there's such a thing as negative interest rates and stuff, man. Man, you're just a conspiracy nut.
I mean, automatic bail-ins.
I mean, that was just bizarreness. They were actually, yes, well, this might be a possibility, positive interest rates. That's when you pay money into the bank and they take some for the privilege. It's absolutely lunacy, but that's the way the world's gone.
I was just thinking as well on the topic of caveats. I'll say my usual caveat because I've been sort of waving the finger at Israel in one way or another. It's not about people. It's about national ideologies, political ideologies. Yeah, I've got nothing against people as long as they're not hurting each other or hurting me or my family or my friends, my social networks, etc. I don't care what particular flag or colour they are or anything like that. To me, doesn't matter. It's people hurting people, and these political ideologies are imperialistic and supremacist and eugenicist and a lot of other kind of stuff we talk about. So me talking about Israel in this sense, usual caveat, I'm not directing this to the people. You know, we can talk about people being indoctrinated and stuff like that, yeah. And there's always bad people in every culture and society. That's a truism as well, unfortunately. But I'm talking about having that longer view, not the short-sighted view, the longer view of seeing who really benefits from this, cui bono. Where is the root likely to stem from? Because does it really benefit the general population of Jewish people if everyone in the world hates them? How is that benefiting them other than, you know, the religious idea of the second coming means, you know, requires everyone to hate them and that kind of stuff? That's, in general population, it doesn't benefit them, does it?
I was thinking on a related topic the other day about how I mean, for anybody with any kind of spirituality, purpose in life is going to be your own spiritual or conscious development. But these people who are wholly materialist, they look to things like bloodline, because whatever they're going to believe in, whatever purpose, it has to tie in with something flesh and blood, land, money, something like that. Yeah. So this greater Israel becomes their ideal because they don't have any personal development. So they go for some ideal, which is greater Israel. Yeah, we're all working for the greater Israel. Rather than thinking about their own development, their own life after death or whatever, their own happiness even. They're just following this material ideal of a boundary on a map. Yeah, and when we achieve that, we'll all be happy. We'll know why we was asking the wrong question, maybe.
But, and where do the boundaries end? Once they've taken over one chunk of land, do they set their eyes on another chunk of land and another chunk of land and then another planet, and on and on and on it goes ad infinitum.
Yeah, it's materialism that's driving it. But you see, we all have the same needs. And anyone with spirituality is going to need to develop that spirituality. When you don't really have a soul, or recognise as a soul, like people like Netanyahu, they still have that same drive for some kind of certainty. Mm-hmm. And so they have to create their own idea. They have to create their own goal to go for. Even though we know it's not going to make them happy. They won't satisfy them. So it's spiritually, waking people up to spirituality one by one. That's the only way. Yeah? Until you've got people like, go and join the army, no, that wouldn't be good for my own development. No way I'm doing that. Yeah? It's a long haul. But then I was listening to John Rappaport last night, and unfortunately he was only on there for an hour. But he was talking to these guys on the radio show about how can we wake more people up. But then I went and took a look at Max Igan's and how many subs he's got, and how many subs John Rappaport's got. And there are an incredible number of people out there waking up. Yeah? And there are loads of people who aren't interested in waking up and being on the net because they're actually doing their own little thing somewhere as well. So, the numbers are huge, in fact.
I've got a feeling, I'm more inclined, I should say, it's stemmed out of that sort of spidey sense feeling to begin with, but I've seen more and more confirmation of it over the last few years. The awakening, they've attempted to co-opt it and turn it into, polarising it again in either direction. They attempt to turn it into some kind of new age, fluffy bullshit. Or it's approached from the opposite direction, and people are just outright denouncing it and claiming that it's a crazy idea to think that people are waking up, and you get that polarization of people again. So they either get completely lost in a kind of nihilistic attitude of, all I need to do to fix the world is sit on my bum and say kumbaya and that kind of stuff, or they go completely the opposite and they become much more overtly physical in one way or another, and that can lead to clashes on the street and whatever, stuff like that. But I've been looking at this kind of stuff for so many years now, and I can remember the classic kind of back in the day, before the noughties, in the 90s, when the internet was a lot less corralled, and this kind of information was out there. There was quite a bit of it, but there was not exactly that much interest in it. It didn't get a lot of traffic, basically. Whereas now, these kind of topics, the system has to actually outright quell these topics. So, bring in evidence about how they manipulate numbers, how they electronically cul-de-sac people, how they will Google wash chunks of information off the internet. The system is desperately trying to stop people from finding this kind of stuff. And that, to me, is an indication that they wouldn't be doing that if the numbers were still the same as they were in the 90s. They can't. The internet and the social media has spread into so many people's lives that more and more people now have access to this kind of stuff, and they're actually going, oh, what's that? oh, what's that? Let's have a look. Let's have a read. Let's have an investigation, and that's spurring this on. Yeah.
I can remember the time that the internet was a quiet place. Before social media, before all the screaming and the memes and all the shit that came out. It wasn't about cat pictures, you know. It wasn't about memes. It wasn't about social media. It was about sharing information. That's how I remember the internet. That's what I try to maintain here, but, you know, not anymore.
Fortunately for us, one of the biggest things that people notice, or one of the first things they notice, is health, and the really low quality of supermarket food. And I mean, anybody getting into the health online, just looking up nutrition and different health pages, is going to hit, you know, right up against the truth movement. Yeah, I mean,
a good analogy for what you were saying there, Peter, as well, was like, if you think of Morse code, man, it's all good and well when there's a few people out there blinking at each other, but then when you get every man and his dog out there blinking, it becomes harder to decipher the signals that make any that warrant any attention.
It becomes a rave.
It's you call it epileptic fits. Cookie's called it a turd in the punch bowl before, like fucking just like how is it, Mike Rivero? Everybody's got a different analogy, but like it's just watering down that essence of good information, and that is when that's when you need to put the work in yourself. You genuinely do, man, because you can't rely on anybody. If you do rely on anybody, you're completely fucked. So you just need to rely on yourself and shift through as much, not even reliable, because no information is reliable. It's up to you to discern whether it's reliable or not. If that even makes any sense, because you can't even go, here, read this will make you intelligent, watch this show, this will... I can go and pick fault in their agendas in every show I watch or listen to or whatever, but I still love them because there's information there to be had. So it's just, I do the rounds, be a info whore. Genuinely be an info whore and just go round and fucking like take in as much information from as many different sources as you can and then make up your own mind. Best way for it.
Yeah.
And talking about info whores, I'll be doing Not the Info Whores Nightly News tonight at 10, which will be funny.
Yeah, cool. I think as well, the more you do it, the more you'll learn discernment. Discernment is like a muscle, you know. It builds up strength and it becomes better and better the more you make use of it. And the more information you go over, the more practice and more training you get. Because part of that social media effect that they've deliberately set out to do is it's not only dropping one turd in the punch bowl now they've brought in a tractor with a manure spreader attached to it and they've buried the punch bowl completely in shit. Yeah, there is that much just crazy shit out there now that you have to keep digging and digging and digging. And if you're interested in these kind of topics and you want to find information, that you have to put the effort in.
And let's not forget, if you want to find out a nice recipe, it isn't too hard to go and get a real recipe and you take it into the kitchen and it works and it does what it says on the tin. More or less, they're probably trying to sell you some. Probably, in fact, there is corruption there as well. They're probably trying to sell you some products, but less so. If you approach, like, I don't know, government corruption, you're going to have to shift through so much bullcrap, pop-ups, tangents, deliberate. Well, we all know what we mean. Just we witness it every day, and it's an unfair playing field because it's the information that's valuable that's hard to search for, and then you can even say it's still that like the internet is keeping the esoteric tradition alive, in the sense you need to train your mind how to think, right? Because I've always said this as well. It's like. It's not about the amount of information you can cram inside your nut, because that's not, for me it's not. It's the ability to process the information that you are receiving objectively and to your own benefit, man. Be selfish with the information you're taking in. I mean, like, take it in, analyse it, and it's to your own benefit to judge it fairly. you're doing yourself a disservice if you take somebody else's biases, another bias that's been programmed into you, and then apply that to information that you're taking in. Surely, own information, every bit of information you take in, you need to be. That's why, and you think I'm talking shit. We all know group conformity works. I've been there, done it. Fuck, I'll just eat fucking a pizza I half like just because it's easier than being awkward. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's capable of group conformity, and like we're fools not to understand that the people who might have ulterior motives for controlling the masses know group conformity, and they know it even to like and the nth degree to the nth degree, and they're applying it, and it's only if you stay true to yourself and completely unbiased, because you can't, but like try to be as unbiased and as critical thinking as you can, that you can try and stay clear as much of that bullcrap as possible. But even then, you get sucked in with it, man, and you catch yourself every now and again getting sucked in with some of the bullcrap. Come on, the Rangers!
I feel I want to add as well, because I do agree with you completely, but there is a balance to the opposing point of view as well, because they will actively use group disconformity against you, because if you're all just individuals, they can deal with you, no problem. You're no threat to them because you're just one individual that thinks one particular thing. So, again, like I mentioned about paranoia earlier, a little bit of paranoia can save your life. Fear is there for a purpose. I don't want to get rid of all fear. I think that's a nonsensical thing to do. It's illogical, because you wouldn't know how to recognise danger and avoid it if you weren't able to sense fear. You know, that's what fear is for. It's a survival instinct. But in the same way as I mentioned about paranoia earlier, they want you to think that being part of any kind of group automatically, oh no, you shouldn't do that, oh that's destructive, or groupthink will get you. You're not agreeing with me because you're susceptible to groupthink. You're wrong because you're in a group. All this kind of stuff, which to me is just more bullshitisms to create polarization. Just because I work with other people, just because I interact with other people, does not necessarily mean I am somehow beholden to them or controlled by them. Yeah? At least do me the justice of seeing me as a sentient being the same as yourself, which means I'm making choice for myself. We're all fallible, so, you know, as people do, people make mistakes, people get in with the wrong crowd, they make friends with the wrong people, all that kind of usual stuff. But we are social animals. We wouldn't be here the way we are now with these societies and these cities and all the other stuff we've got if we didn't work together as groups. Arguments like we started on the topic about nationalism, basically. Your nations wouldn't exist if you hadn't been working together in groups. There is a bit of balance there. Yeah. Group conformity can be used to manipulate you in both directions. So yeah, it's definitely something to learn about, and being objective and being honest with yourself and developing that discernment muscle. Don't let it put you off getting involved with working with other people or being in groups and stuff like that. I think it's another psychological misdirection to keep people divided and confused and running around like headless chickens, not actually getting anything really done. Yeah.
And well, I've actually like from the
sorry, mate. I'm just going to go and switch my light on. I'll be back on a minute. Carry on.
No worries. He's putting our 50p in the meter, Cookie. Shit, I forgot what I was going to say there now. Shit, man, I can't. I've actually, my head's went blanked. Peter, what were we talking about there, buddy?
Yeah, shove it on to me.
No, I'm not. I just went blank. I've got 50 pence in the meter stuck in my head and I can't get rid of it. And like, what the fuck was the actual topic we were talking about? As soon as I knew we were back on, we're talking about discernment and the ability to be able to judge. Shit, Shit, I was halfway there. Halfway there. All right. Oh no, I'm going to leave that for a. That was me just pulling one out of my pad there. I'm leaving that for a video. No, we were talking about discernment and shit. Ah, fuck.
And group conformity, discernment and group conformity.
Oh, aye. It was like. I think that they've moved us away from that natural tribalism to the individuals in our concrete, in our boxes, who suspect everybody, including our family members. I mean, like all this child line stuff and all that, and I know, oh, fuck that. Like it sounds great on the tin, but ultimately what it's doing there is creating a disharmony within the family. When families always used to come first, but it isn't. It's the individual comes first now, because they can go and tattletale on the members of the family, and bad things will happen. But we never used to have that dynamic before. Now you may argue that's a good thing because you will look after the children, the fucking families, you donuts, and that's what used to happen before the government deliberately smashed them, in my humble opinion. So, like group conformity and. Group conformity is like natural tribalism is more of a jigsaw puzzle, right? Everybody's a wee bit slightly different shape and they all fit in and they ultimately make a big mosaic, big picture. But group conformity is more you're all one fucking one piece stacked on top of each other, fucking to save space. You know what I mean? So that's what I would fucking. That's what I would think would be my ruby red slipper, towards my ruby red slipper moment, where people would move towards a more natural tribalism. Get rid of all this racism shit and all that. It's not down to your colour and all that. It's down to where people perceive they're from. Some people have been, and I argue, programmed just now, because to see people by the colour of their skin rather than. I think that's from programming, because when I see a black dude with a Scottish accent, I'm like, there's a Scottish dude, and I would feel as patriotic towards him as a Scot when Scotland were playing England, if that makes any sense. I'd feel as bonded with him, and so that's the natural tribalism I'm talking about, and skin colour and all the crap that they bring in from the media and stuff. It's pretty much programmed in, and you can always boil it back to babies in a box if you don't interfere with them. They'll pretty much grow up and just go, you're black, I'm white, we're brothers. You've got different hair from me, cool, let me feel it for half an hour, right, cool, we're at. Let's move on, get on with our lives. Figure out how we can help each other out. And that tends to be the natural human condition, unless there's outside entities that has something to benefit from, I don't know, maybe trying to herd people in concrete jungles to get them to produce products to make them even richer beyond their wildest dreams. And it's a hard reality. It's almost reality, Cookie. It's almost reality. It's almost a hard reality. It's almost a hard reality. But I genuinely believe that. Now, like, it doesn't mean that I want you to go out there and tie a noose on your neck and jump out of the nearest building because we're all just slaves. It's I have found a different way to look at life through that understanding. And when I speak to people about the way I approach life and stuff, even no matter what lifestyle they're living and stuff, unless they're the biggest prick in the world, they tend not to have a problem with it, or like they can't really find fault in it. They can't find fault in it, like, because they can see it's coming from a position of genuine morals and like, here, like, this is why I feel the way I feel, and it's always good. See, it's always people always find that very interesting in me, because I'll say things that they'll go, oh, and then they'll speak to me for 5 minutes if they're lucky, 2.5 hours if they're unlucky, and then they'll go, hold on, man, this guy actually like he holds this belief for a reason. Whether I agree with it or not, he holds it for a reason. He's not just one of these guys sitting spouting off headlines and stuff, and that's what I also appreciate when I start speaking to people as well.
I was going to say the key word in what you were saying was conformity. Because group is, just a group of people. Group conformity usually, it's not strict to the definition, but usually would imply that whether you agree with it or not, or whether you can even conceive of it or not, you just go along, you conform to the norm, whatever that particular group is doing, yeah? And that really is the key word about that phrase. You can be part of a group without conforming unthinkingly to what the group is about. And a lot of what the authority structure, the hierarchical structure relies on is your ignorance. They deliberately keep you ignorant and then cajole you, they psychologically berate you into conforming with what they want. That's why we get all these kind of social pressures to, you don't want to be ostracized, do you? You're not one of those crazy tinfoil hatters. Nobody'd ever talk to you again. All that kind of shit, psychological manipulation.
I was going to throw out there, you can get gangs without uniforms. You can get a group of people that can get along because they enjoy each other's company, and it's not because they're following a rule book. They follow a set of rules that a ruler has set down. Think of it even in a simple way when you hung about with your pals when you were younger. There was never really a leader. There was always groups within groups and fights and all that crap. That's the natural way of being. But then, I think it's a good idea you go to the Boys Brigade, the Scouts, the this, the that. Right, okay, people, I'm a big adult standing in front of you. Stand in a line and do as I say. The exact same principle. The exact same natural instinct, or the natural want to be knocked out of us through the institutions. And these institutions are dressed up like, go to the Scouts, we'll learn you how to do whatever Scouts do. And ultimately it's learning you to obey and follow and conform and succumb to authority.
Yeah, fit into a pecking order.
It occurred to me the other day how these word spells start early at school. Because I remember there was this little girl, and we was in infants, 6 years old, and if anybody did something that was out of line, one of these little girls would go, telling teacher on you. And I look back on this. Does anybody else remember people saying that?
Aye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now take it in its entirety, like it's just all one word. Telling teacher on you. It's a spell. They're putting a spell on you. The spell of telling teacher. Putting it on you. Oh no, oh no, I'm under the telling teacher. Oh no, somebody's going to tell teacher. It's it's the words are carrying the spell, yeah. And it's the bit on the end that gives it away. Telling teacher on you. I mean, why would somebody say that on you? That tells you it's a kind of spell, yeah.
Yeah, like they're casting it at you. This is on you, like they've thrown it at you, like casting a spell. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the dog shit touch on you.
I was thinking as well. I don't want to digress too far into this, but just give it a quick outline. In terms of that kind of tribal mentality and being part of something bigger than yourself, it's a common phrase that you'll often hear through your upbringing into the indoctrination into that hierarchical structure. Again, simple caveat of not everything is to your detriment. Working together as a team for a bigger goal can actually be to your benefit. So it's not always to your detriment. But in an esoteric sense, what these people have perfected, and I use that word loosely because I'm not trying to suggest that they can do this perfectly and they have ultimate control, Colin, they don't. But what they have learned to manipulate is that metaphysical group mind, and a lot of esotericism and magic is about the creation of, manipulation of, and directing of group intention. That's because as a group you have much more power than as an individual, and that applies also to your power of intention. So things like the nation state and other such bigger than yourself concepts are very much about the manipulation of that group mind effect. Yeah, and I know, and again, it's one of those topics that we've often talked about the wizards in power, and the people who mess in this kind of strange esoteric stuff and whatever. Whether they are members of some particular secret society and blah 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 blah. A lot of what they're doing may not necessarily be a magic spell. A lot of it is psychology and sociology and that kind of manipulation. Example, Tavistock and Chattermouse or whatever. Yeah, but that's what they're doing. They're manipulating the archetypal concepts that they have put into you to make you conform to a group mind branding. So that when they say particular keywords or phrases to you, you automatically know where you need to sort of slot in and fit in line and become another brick in that particular wall. And things like a lot of the conflict that's happening at the moment across Europe, again, it's another one of those things we talked a lot about recently, pretty obviously, because of all the stuff that's going on. But that, the way I see it, I'll caveat myself in that, it's my perception, my opinion, my view on these things. That is being done deliberately as the catalyst to justify the creation and consolidation of a European superstate police surveillance structure. So they're getting you to attach yourself to this group mind concept of you versus these outsiders who are here to harm you, are coming like barbarians at the gate. They're invading your city, except now it's not just a city, it's a continent size area that they want to put a wall around. The wall might not be physical, but it's in here. It's a conceptual wall that you reinforce yourself. You self-police it, and you reinforce it day by day with all these different terror events and all the other propaganda that's going on. And that is the esoteric manipulation of getting millions of people to go along with a particular narrative or agenda. Those two words are interchangeable, really. So, rant over. Did I lose you all with that one?
No.
I've just been too Jen.
I've lost all my Alex Jones links for tonight. I'm struggling to get a good Alex Jones link.
You're lucky.
No, I've got one on Conspiracy Scope, but the resolution's pish, so my camera's not picking it up good. So I was seeing if I could get a higher definition one, but I think I've left it too late in the game. Sorry.
I'm not sure you need a high resolution red face Texan shit. Low resolution one will do just as good.
Are you talking about the Cenk Uygur, Alex Jones wrestling belt? Did you see that one?
Is that the Young Turks guy you're talking about?
Yeah, they're sitting on their sofa doing their video, and Alex Jones walks in and starts, invades their interview, and Cenk gets up and they're almost body checking, but not quite. It was such a fucking circus show.
Oh my god, it sounds like WWF. Do you know when they used to do those things, when they used to accidentally meet and
better.
Well, I mean, just there's so much behind that. You can't tell whether it's scripted and they're smiling because it's part of a script or because they just enjoy the viewers. I mean, these people know what makes good TV, so to speak. But it was fucking ridiculous anyway. Yeah, it really was.
You know what's so funny? I just got my Alex Jones email advertisement through, and it's 40% brain force. 40% brain force, that must be up to 40% off storable foods, 30% off survival shield 2 and more.
So does that mean if you take that stuff you lose 30% of your brain power?
Probably that's what it sounds like, Cookie.
It was when I watched that Cenk Uygur and that's when it occurred to me that the guy that writes their scripts is sitting there with both of them in front of him. Yeah, well, I will do this for the Young Turks. Oh, and we'll have Alex Jones say the exact opposite over here. And of course, there are people who will watch both. You know, it must make a terrible kind of sense to them. You know, there's just everything in their head is perfectly balanced to hate each other. There must be some real schizos watch Alex Jones and the Young Turks
at the same time.
Yeah,
simultaneously.
Right.
I think I've not watched Alex Jones for a long time, especially for a prolonged period, and I don't think I've ever watched the InfoWars Nightly News, not in this format anyway, not that I can remember. So this is going to be funny because it's Rachel Maddow doing Whatnot, man. So that's going to be.
Yeah, I couldn't watch the Tommy Robinson earlier on because it's Paul Joseph Watson, and I just cannot listen to it. Yeah,
He doesn't say a lot, to be honest. He lets him just rant to fill up nearly the entire thing. I did sit through it just to get the details so that I wasn't talking without actually having seen it. But yeah, he just lets him say near enough whatever he wants.
Thanks to Paul Joseph Watson though for teaching me how they might use mind control in the thing, because when he talks something very important, not only does he look at the camera, but I'm sitting there thinking maybe the guy and the producer who does the videos actually does something with the sound at that point and makes the sound resonate as well. And it wouldn't have surprised me, yeah. And I picked that idea up watching.
Harry, look, there's Paul Joseph Watson doing his "Look into my eyes, not around my eyes."
Somebody had a picture of him at the Bilderberger from about 5 years ago, and he had a long, almost curlyish hair, and I didn't recognise it. I don't know, maybe that's a bad sign. If you see somebody and you can't recognise them.
Is he Jufro?
Mm.
You might see when you meet him as well. Like, you look at him and you think he's a wee prick, and then you see him and he's like 6 foot 6 a bit. It's not as well. No, in fact, he's taller than that actually. Because I'm just under 6 foot. He's must be about 6'3", 4, something like that.
Charlie Richards, another one, about 6'3", yeah?
Whether he does manipulate the actual audio or not, I don't know. I think that would be difficult to prove, but anybody who talks to a public audience over a number of years or what, they get better and better at what they do. And he would certainly be taking note of which of his videos get the most interaction and stuff like that. So a lot of that kind of stuff you can learn quite simply yourself. I mean, you can go and look up actual instructional information of how to do all this kind of stuff if you want. You even get into NLP and things like that as well. But anybody who connects well with a public audience, they learn how to do this kind of stuff. You pick it up, it's like a musician standing on a stage. You learn stagecraft, how to interact with an audience, how to respond to get the kind of response from the audience that you want. And then, yeah, you can take it as far as people being actually trained to do that kind of stuff. Like nearly every politician is trained how to do it.
NLP, that's for sure.
I'm sure there probably are people out there who deliberately mess with the actual audio to have effects on people. I mean, I've done deliberately. Oh dear. I've done it deliberately in the past, where just to make the point, I've added echo and stuff like that to a recording of my voice, just to show how easy it is to do that kind of manipulation to make whatever it is you're doing be more dramatic or have more of a particular impact or whatever. It's like some of the news media now will actually add music to as a backing track to news information. Like RT does it all the time. They won't have a newsreader talking to you. They'll present you some graphics or some video clips, but they'll add dramatic music on it as well. And but it's just such cheap-ass propaganda techniques. But it's even in what is supposed to be news now. It's no longer news, it's blatant propaganda. One side or the other is propaganda.
Including
You've all gone quiet. I'm coughing, sorry. Go on.
Including InfoWars.
Yeah.
They're more mainstream than mainstream.
Well,
They are now, and yeah.
I think I started saying this earlier and went off on a tangent, but I must have lasted 8 minutes in or whatnot watching this today, and I was like, I have to turn that off, my ears are bleeding. And it's much of the same, and see, even now that I can remember being a fan of this and lapping this up like a dog, I really can, and it's been so long since I've been in that headspace that now I look at it and cringe. I really cringe at people that lap this crap up. I mean, it's like, well, I'll hold fire for the fucking not the InfoWars nightly news tonight.
Just out of interest, Kip, what are they saying about Nicola Sturgeon these days?
InfoWars?
No, in Scotland, like.
I'm saying she's Hitler. A lot of people are seeing it. Well, I'm hanging about in the wrong circles, but I'm not getting as much flack for calling Sturgeon Hitler as I thought. But I've not went to a political rally yet.
But as one of the puppets, she's sort of done her a bit for a while, yeah. And she did try to get us the Brexit and all the rest of it, but Europe weren't having it and that. And I'm thinking that now is the time, yeah, to be attacking her wherever you can. Yeah, now she's not in the news. People aren't going to feel like defending her. And now's the time to say, well, look what the fucking good she did, eh? It's fucking useless. Went off to Europe. I mean, keep plugging it, yeah? Keep putting it home. Because they're going to use her again. You can be sure of that.
Oh, she's sitting and wait, man. What the last thing I heard about Sturgeon is when she was talking about the conditions, she was talking about negotiating with the EU, and then I must have needed a shit or something. So
No, they all told her no, and that was it. She just went quiet. She just went home. Oh, she had a little meeting with Theresa, didn't she? They shook hands.
There was another one after that though, Gary. I might be misspeaking, but I thought it was something else. And Sturgeon sat down and put out the 6 points. It was 6 points of cooperation that she would want for Scotland if and when the UK leaves the EU. So she's still, and I think this must have been a Theresa May meeting actually. Maybe that's what it was. That's why I'm getting mixed up. But I'll need to definitely catch up with the Sturgeon. That's for sure.
Hello to everyone in the chat. Let's see if I can get the...
I mentioned Sturgeon that because with the blowing up of the things in France and Germany, there are a lot of stories that they were running a little while back that kind of fizzled out for them, and they're dropping them. And they'll be bringing them back up again at some time. And so those stories are the ones where, you know, you just let us tie off the loose ends on them. Yeah, so they can't just drag them back up again and like nothing happened. Like Nicola Sturgeon didn't go to Europe and was completely humiliated. I mean, let's not forget these things, because that's what they bank on, that the public forget all about that, and in 3 months they can switch it all around and change what stories they're telling.
Guys, I'm just going to quickly say I'm going to make myself a tea and a coffee and stuff, so I'm not going to leave the hangout. I'm just going to mute up and turn my camera off. But Cookie, thanks for putting us on, mate. Thanks for having me. I don't know when you're running it to and whatnot, but I'll stay in the room, catch some after chat and stuff. I'm just going to... I need to plug in computers and stuff.
Yeah, I know what he's... Go on for another 10-15 minutes yet. Wind it up about 1:45, 10 to...
I'll be listening. So thanks everybody, and join us at 10 if you fancy being Newsman InfoWars style, and I'll speak to you guys later. So cheers, Cookie.
Okay. Yeah, I say out to people in the chat room. Big Alan, Blazing Stars, Collyman, Gas Mask, James, John, fuck the New World Order, Lewis Carroll, Feed Your Head, Miriam, Nimi, Skating, Scootering, and vlogs. And look, Society of the Spectacle, Zigzag, and that's what it's showing me in the list. But I'm sure there's other people in there as well. Maybe I scroll up a bit. Can't see any names that I've missed. And this is just a general observation. I mean, people may be coming in to these kind of chats without seeing the context of the hundreds, if not thousands, of other Hangout chats that we've had. Trying to start a debate about gods and faith and stuff like that is not really going to get you anywhere. Not in this environment. People are quite well informed, and it's not as simplistic as just trying to set up a bait about religion and God and stuff like that. It's a sophistry of the lowest form, I think. But yeah, there's a lot of that recently, and that, as far as I'm concerned, adds into the general tableau of what's going on the internet at the moment to push the race war, because these are the little baits, the little tasty treats that they try and tempt you into beginning an argument that leads to that polarization that they're trying to push with this race war rhetoric bullshit. You know, are you a Christian, or are you a Muslim, or are you a Jew, or are you a Hindu? You got to pick one so that we can set you against your enemies. We need to know what you are so that we can then put you up against an enemy. If you don't have an enemy, we'll create one for you. And if you say you don't believe, then you're an atheist, and we hate atheists just as much as everyone else. So we got enemies for you as well. For everybody, enemies for everyone. So, you know, discussing that kind of stuff, great. But if you think it will get you anywhere in terms of sparking an argument, it's not going to happen.
a little bit more controversy. I'll mention Jeff C. Yeah, and he had
Jeff C. Controversy. Yeah,
he had a video by a Senator McKinney, a coloured woman, who said that Israel was behind all these attacks, and she tweeted his video. That. Yeah. And saying that the Nice and Munich attacks had the same photographer who was linked into a Mossad agent. And this is an American senator, and it was Breitbart. That's it.
Breitbart, yes.
Breitbart.
I do think he's probably being set up by the say Mossad, but Mossad's a bit too specialised for doing this kind of general work, but probably the ADL or some other branch of that kind of NGO grouping. They've been after him for a long while, you know they have, and they've been trying to set him up in one way or another. And Cynthia McKinney has been a long time, she has been outspoken about the 9/11 situation and other political topics in the USA, and she's mentioned this kind of stuff many times. She's talked about the Zionist agenda and stuff like that. She's brought it up many times, and they've been using their usual tactic of defamation and character assassination for the past several years, as far back as I can remember of her first coming out and speaking up about 9/11 event. They've been trying to attack her and bring her down in one way or another. I'm not saying I wholeheartedly support her and 100% agree and all that usual kind of caveat, but as a general observation, the very fact that she used one of his videos as an example, making her statement, you know, by sharing his link, that then gets them on his case even more so, and they'll attempt to weave that into the usual anti-Semitic bullshit narrative that they do. Yeah, it's why now it becomes tedious, but now you have to say several caveats before you even say anything else, And that is the extent that this political correctness bullshit has gotten to. Like the common tactic of, if you question something about these terrorist events, you automatically a traitor to your country, and you love the crazy Muslims that are killing people. That kind of leap, that non sequitur leap of not even logic, you know, it's not logic, but that's the knee-jerk emotional reactions that they're after. They want people to react in that manner. So yes, sorry, I'm ranting a bit about what you're saying, but yeah, I did see his little video about that, and I thought, yeah, it does again, to me, look like that push towards the usual kind of defamation and character assassination. They'll probably start swamping his video comments with whatever, the usual kind of soccer account troll attacks and stuff like that. It's over at the moment. The internet is being saturated with it. Yeah, Brigade 77, and I can't remember the name of them now. The student army that they have, not only in Israel, but they're all across the globe. They're part of the diaspora. Students who are paid a stipend to post positive comments about the Israeli state, or to attack and counter negative comments about the Israeli state. You know, this is not something new. It's just that over the last few years, the saturation effect of it on the internet and social media in particular has just become, to a monumental level, a tsunami level. Half the time now when you go video, and I mean, I've been doing YouTube stuff for a few years, so I've got used to seeing certain names, whether they make videos or not. They might comment a lot, yeah, so I see the names come up under different channels, videos and stuff like that, and you get used to seeing those kind of people turning up. Under some videos now, you'll get one or two comments from people whose names and stuff I recognise, and then the rest is just saturated, absolutely saturated with names you've never seen before. And if you go and look at their channels, the channels are probably empty. Yeah? There are no videos on them, no likes on them, nothing. It's not always the case, but that has become more and more and more over the last 2 or 3 years. The number of blank sock accounts that are used to just maybe not outright attack people, but even just to create conflicts, to insert doubt, to, you know, create confusion, like the mass turd effect in the punch bowl again. Yeah. So I hope he keeps on doing what he's doing, but you know, this kind of stuff is part of this environment. The system controls or heavily manipulates this environment, so you're not going to get away from that shit. You either have to develop a thick skin or stop doing it, and that's what they want. Well, what else is within the last few days or the last week or so? If people have got anything else they want to mention in particular, do it now or forever hold your PC.
Forever.
You're holding your forever. It's a very long time.
I'll try. No, I've got nothing to add, mate. Was a good show and a good talk, good chat.
Yeah, man. Just wind it up and give people a chance to get yourself a drink or a doobie and switch over to Kit's channel to watch Bemusement. And don't believe the hype. Don't fall for the propaganda, terranoia, terraforming. I was thinking about this a while ago. As an English word we use as a description for how supposedly technology can alter an environment to make it suitable habitation for human beings. In the same manner, the manipulators, the usurpers, use fear and terror to form your group mind thinking into the particular mold that they want you to be in. Terraforming. They're terraforming you on a metaphysical, psychological aspect rather than necessarily physical.
And they use fearnography to do it.
Yeah, the fear porn, the fearnography, Evan. Okay, I'll wind it up there. Thanks for watching, folks. Again, thanks in the chat room if you've been chatting and exchanging and whatever. That's all good stuff. I'm sorry I can't keep up with everything to put in the chat room. It becomes too much of a multitasking difficulty for me. I'm never really good at that kind of multitasking. But that doesn't stop you having a chat and doing your own thing. Yeah, keep talking, keep sharing, keep speaking out. I may not agree with what you're speaking out about, but our main defense against all this shit is free speech. You can't be hurt by words, except maybe emotionally hurt, but I think you get the point. Okay, thanks guys for joining. Should be back to normal next week. We'll be on Peter Howard's channel at the usual 8 PM UK time. Thanks to Kip. We'll see you in a bit on your channel, right, for the news. Thanks to Gary, Society of Spectacle. Thanks to Frank. And thanks to Lowlands Pete. Take care, folks. And I will...
Thank you, Cookie.
Thank you, Cookie.
Thanks, Cookie.
I'll see you again soon. Take care, folks. Good night.
Life.
Catches.